Good morning, everyone. I want you to imagine the way the first few minutes of your day set the tone for everything that follows. Those early hours are like soft clay. What you do with them can shape not only your productivity, but also your emotional balance. For many people, mornings are rushed, heavy, or filled with worry. But there are simple habits we can introduce that act like natural antidepressants, lifting our mood, stabilizing our thoughts, and reminding us that we are in control of our own rhythm. The first is movement. It doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. Even stretching by the window or walking outside signals to the body that life is in motion. Movement releases endorphins, clears away morning fog, and reduces the heaviness that can weigh on the mind. The second is sunlight. Stepping outside or opening the blinds tells your body to wake up fully. Sunlight helps regulate your circadian rhythm, boosts vitamin D, and directly improves the production of serotonin, the chemical that brightens our mood. The third is mindful breathing. Before checking your phone or rushing into tasks, take a few moments to breathe deeply, slowly, and with awareness. This practice grounds you, lowers cortisol levels, and gives your mind a gentle reminder that calm is available at any time. The fourth is gratitude. Naming even one or two things you're thankful for shifts your perspective. Instead of focusing on what's missing, your brain begins to notice what is already present, safe, and supportive in your life. This small practice can transform the emotional lens through which you view the rest of the day. The fifth is intentional nourishment. The food or drink you begin with can either fuel stability or contribute to imbalance. Choosing water first or a breakfast rich in whole foods signals kindness toward your body. It's a way of saying, I care about how I feel, and I'm going to start with something that sustains me. When we weave these habits together, movement, sunlight, breathing, gratitude, and nourishment, we create a morning that works like medicine without the side effects. They don't erase life's challenges, but they give us resilience to meet them with steadier minds and lighter hearts. And the best part is they are free, accessible, and entirely within our reach each day. So tomorrow, when you wake up, remember that the first choices you make are like small doses of healing. Start gently, start intentionally, and watch how those habits become the foundation of a brighter mind and a calmer life. When we talk about mental health, it's easy to imagine complicated solutions, medical treatments, or things that feel far beyond our control. But sometimes the most profound changes come from the smallest, simplest habits we repeat every day. Mornings in particular are a powerful window of opportunity. They set the emotional and mental rhythm that carries us forward into everything else we do. What we choose to do in the first hour after waking can determine whether our mind feels heavy or light, foggy or clear, restless or steady. Among the many practices available to us, 3 stand out as natural, accessible, and incredibly effective: movement, sunlight, and mindful breathing. These are not abstract ideas. They are everyday actions that, when woven into a morning routine, can act as natural antidepressants, gently but powerfully shifting the way our brain and body respond to the challenges of life. Let's begin with movement. Our bodies were not designed to remain still for long periods, especially after a night of sleep. During rest, muscles stiffen, blood circulation slows, and our brain's activity drops into deeper rhythms. The moment we wake, we have a choice to carry that heaviness into the day or to invite the body back into flow. Movement is the language our body understands best. When we stretch, walk, dance, or even sway lightly, we send a message to every cell that it is time to awaken. Scientifically, physical activity triggers the release of endorphins, so-called feel-good, chemicals that improve mood and reduce pain. Even a few minutes of gentle stretching can begin this process. Imagine standing by a window, raising your arms overhead, rolling your shoulders back, and taking a slow forward fold. That small act not only loosens physical tension, but also signals the brain that energy is available. For someone struggling with feelings of sadness or heaviness, those first few minutes of movement can break the inertia that depression often feeds on. It doesn't take a full workout to feel this shift. Research has shown that as little as 10 minutes of light activity, such as walking or cycling, can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. The key is consistency. When movement becomes part of the morning ritual, it acts like medicine taken daily in doses that the body and mind can handle. And unlike medication, there are no negative side effects, only strength, vitality, and the reminder that we are capable of motion, of forward progress. Movement also teaches us something important about emotional health, that we do not have to feel good before we start. In fact, starting often creates the good feeling. This flips the story many of us carry, the idea that motivation must come first. Instead, action brings about motivation. Step by step, stretch by stretch, our inner state begins to shift. Now consider the second habit, sunlight. Light is more than something that brightens a room. For human beings, it is information. Our bodies are wired with an internal clock, the circadian rhythm that governs when we feel awake, when we feel sleepy, and how balanced our hormones remain throughout the day. Morning sunlight is one of the most powerful signals to reset that rhythm. When the eyes receive natural light, even on a cloudy day, the brain begins a cascade of responses. Cortisol, the hormone that helps us wake and stay alert, rises to healthy levels. Serotonin, a neurotransmitter strongly linked to mood, begins to increase. Over time, consistent exposure to morning light can even improve the quality of our sleep at night, creating a cycle of energy and rest that protects mental health. Sunlight is also our primary natural source of vitamin D, a nutrient deeply connected to mood regulation. Low levels of vitamin D have been associated with higher rates of depression, and while supplements can help, nothing quite compares to the body's natural ability to produce it when the skin meets sunlight. Even 5 to 15 minutes outdoors in the morning can make a noticeable difference. Picture yourself stepping outside, coffee or tea in hand, breathing in the crisp air as light touches your face. That moment is not just pleasant, it is therapeutic. It is nature's quiet way of reminding us that each day is new, that light exists after darkness, that cycles of renewal are part of life itself. For individuals who struggle with seasonal affective disorder, a form of depression linked to changes in light, this habit is even more crucial. There is also a psychological effect to greeting the day with sunlight. When we open the blinds or step outside soon after waking, we are saying yes to the day instead of hiding from it. We are choosing engagement over avoidance, openness over withdrawal. Depression often whispers to us that the safest place is under the covers, closed off from the world. But when we face the light, literally, we counter that voice with action. We don't need to solve everything at once. We just need to begin with light. The third habit, mindful breathing, might seem the simplest of all, yet its power is profound. Breathing is the one bodily function that happens automatically and yet can be consciously controlled. It bridges the unconscious and conscious mind. When we pay attention to the breath, we influence both our mental state and our physiological processes. Many of us wake up and immediately flood our minds with stimulant emails, notifications, tasks waiting for us. Our nervous system responds as though we are under threat, with cortisol and adrenaline rising quickly. By pausing for a few minutes to breathe deeply and mindfully, we send the opposite message: slow. Intentional breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the body responsible for rest and recovery. It tells the heart to slow down, muscles to relax, and the mind's one simple practice is to inhale through the nose for 4 counts, hold briefly, and exhale through the mouth for 6 counts. That extended exhale mimics the bodily relaxation signal, reminding us that we are safe. Another practice is simply to notice the breath without trying to change it, letting the inhale and exhale move naturally, observing how air fills the chest and belly. This mindful awareness interrupts cycles of rumination and grounds us in the present. For someone battling depression or anxiety, the present moment can feel elusive. Breathing gently brings it back. What makes mindful breathing so powerful in the morning is its ability to create space before the day rushes in. Instead of being pulled immediately into demands and distractions, we begin with centeredness. That space can be the difference between reacting impulsively to stress and responding calmly. Over time, the practice reshapes our baseline state, training the nervous system to remain steadier throughout the day. It is like watering the roots of a tree before expecting it to stand strong in the wind. When we look at these 3 habits together, movement, sunlight, and mindful breathing, we see how they work in harmony. Movement activates the body, generating energy and releasing endorphins. Sunlight awakens the biological clock, raising serotonin and balancing hormones. Breathing calms the nervous system, centering the mind. Each of them is powerful on its own, but combined, they form a simple yet profound morning ritual that acts like a natural antidepressant. They address the body, the brain, and the breath, the 3 pillars of our daily experience. And importantly, they are available to nearly everyone without cost, without complicated equipment, without requiring us to be experts. It is also important to recognize that these habits are not meant to replace professional care for those who need it. Depression is complex, and sometimes medical support, therapy, or medication is essential. But even alongside those treatments, morning habits like these can provide an additional layer of support, a foundation of daily resilience. They empower us to participate in our healing, to take small but meaningful steps each day. In a world where so much feels outside our control, these practices remind us that some things remain in our hands. Imagine what happens when these actions become second nature. You wake, you stretch or walk for a few minutes, step into the morning light, and spend a few breaths in mindful stillness. Within 20 minutes, your body is more awake, Your mood is lifted and your mind is calmer. You haven't rushed. You haven't flooded yourself with negative news or endless tasks. Instead, you've set a tone of clarity and self-care. Carrying that into the rest of the day changes the way you show up at work, in relationships, and in your own thoughts. Over weeks and months, the cumulative effect becomes undeniable. You are not only less weighed down by low moods, but also more resilient when challenges arise. The beauty of these habits lies in their accessibility and adaptability. Movement can mean yoga, stretching, or even dancing to your favorite song. Sunlight can be sought in a backyard, a balcony, or by walking around the block. Breathing can be practiced seated on the floor, lying in bed, or while sipping tea. There is no one perfect formula. The key is simply to begin. Depression often thrives on inertia, on the belief that nothing we do will make a difference. These habits gently prove otherwise. They show us day after day that small actions accumulate into real change. And perhaps most importantly, these habits are not only about preventing sadness or lifting depression. They are about cultivating joy. Movement can feel playful. Sunlight can spark wonder. Breathing can bring peace. They are not just remedies, but reminders of what it feels like to be alive, to be present, to be connected to ourselves and the world. In that sense, they do more than act as natural antidepressants. They act as natural enhancers of life itself. So when we think of the mornings ahead, let us see them not as obstacles to push through, but as opportunities to care for ourselves in the simplest of ways. By choosing movement, by seeking light, by breathing with awareness, we are not just starting the day, we are healing ourselves moment by moment, and each morning becomes another chance to practice the art of rising, not only from bed, but into life itself. When we think about emotional balance, we often picture complicated strategies or big life changes. But sometimes balance is built from the smallest, most personal choices, the way we think when we first wake, and the way we fuel our bodies as the day begins. Two habits in particular can profoundly shape the course of our mornings, and by extension, our lives. The practice of gratitude and the practice of intentional nourishment. They may seem simple, even ordinary, but together they act like steady anchors for the mind and body, shifting perspective away from negativity and building the foundation for emotional resilience. Let us begin with gratitude. It is a word so commonly used that it risks sounding cliché, but its impact on mental health is undeniable. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It is the deliberate act of noticing and appreciating what is present, rather than focusing only on what is absent. The human brain has a natural negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, it helped us survive. Our ancestors needed to notice danger more than safety, scarcity more than abundance. But in today's world, that bias often leaves us anxious, dissatisfied, and weighed down by comparison. Gratitude interrupts that cycle. By consciously naming what we are thankful for, we redirect attention from what we lack to what we have, from fear to appreciation, from despair to possibility. Imagine beginning your morning not with the buzzing demands of a phone, but with a quiet acknowledgement. I am grateful for the bed that held me through the night. I am grateful for the breath that fills my lungs. I am grateful for the chance to begin again today. These thoughts may seem small, but they plant seeds of contentment. Neuroscience shows us that regularly practicing gratitude actually reshapes the brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with positive emotion and weakening those linked to negative rumination. Over time, it becomes easier to see goodness, even in difficulty. For someone struggling with depression or anxiety, that shift in perspective is not trivial. It can be life-saving. Gratitude also creates connection. When we feel thankful, we naturally turn outward, recognizing others' roles in our lives. We may think of a friend who supported us, a teacher who inspired us, or even the stranger who held the door open yesterday. That recognition cultivates empathy and reminds us that we are not isolated, but part of a larger web of care. Depression often convinces us that we are alone, unseen, or unworthy. Gratitude counters this lie with evidence of love, kindness, and belonging. Of course, gratitude does not mean ignoring pain. It does not deny hardship or pretend that life is always easy. Rather, it offers balance. It says, yes, I am struggling, and yet there are still things worth noticing, still moments of light within the darkness. This balanced perspective is what prevents gratitude from becoming toxic positivity. It does not erase suffering, but it places suffering in context. It keeps the lens of the heart wide enough to see both the shadows and the light. Now, let us turn to intentional nourishment. The way we feed our bodies in the morning is not only a physical act, it is an emotional one. Food is information for the body. It tells our brain how much energy is available, how stable our mood will be, and how resilient we will feel under stress. Too often, Mornings begin with neglect, skipping breakfast, reaching for sugar-heavy foods, or surviving on caffeine alone. These choices create spikes and crashes in blood sugar, fueling irritability, anxiety, and fatigue. For someone already vulnerable to low moods, this instability can make the day much harder to manage. Intentional nourishment, by contrast, means choosing to eat or drink in a way that supports steadiness. It is not about dieting or perfection. It is about kindness. It is about asking, what will help my body feel stable? What will give my mind the clarity it needs? For some, this may mean starting with a glass of water before anything else, rehydrating the body after hours of rest. For others, it may mean a breakfast rich in protein and whole foods, perhaps eggs, oats, fruit, or nuts that provide slow-releasing energy. The goal is not to follow a rigid rule book, but to create a sense of care. Every sip and bite says, I am worth looking after. This act of nourishment also has a symbolic meaning. When we eat mindfully, when we choose intentionally, we are making a statement about our relationship with ourselves. Depression often whispers that we are undeserving of care, that we do not matter enough to tend to. But when we choose to nourish ourselves with thoughtfulness, we resist that voice. We say, I do matter. My body deserves fuel. My mind deserves support. That message, repeated daily, builds self-respect and self-compassion. There is also a connection between nutrition and the gut-brain axis. Modern science has shown us that the gut is like a second brain with its own complex network of neurons and chemicals. What we eat influences the balance of gut bacteria, which in turn affects neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, both central to mood regulation. By choosing foods that nourish the gut, fiber, probiotics, whole grains, fresh produce, we are indirectly nourishing our emotional health. This is not about perfection or restriction, but about awareness. A piece of fruit in the morning, a handful of seeds, or a smoothie with greens may not seem like much, but it is a step toward balance, a reminder that we can influence how we feel through the care we take with our bodies. When we bring gratitude and intentional nourishment together, their power multiplies. Gratitude shifts the mind from scarcity to abundance, and nourishment affirms that abundance physically. Gratitude acknowledges that we already have enough, and nourishment puts that acknowledgement into practice by treating the body with kindness. Gratitude softens the heart, and nourishment strengthens the body. Together they create harmony. One feeds the soul, the other feeds the cells, and both whisper the same message: you are cared for, you are safe, you are alive. Consider a simple morning routine that weaves these habits seamlessly. You wake, and before picking up your phone, you close your eyes and name 3 things you are grateful for. Perhaps the softness of the blanket, the laughter you shared with a friend yesterday, or simply the chance to breathe. You then walk to the kitchen and pour a glass of water, noticing the sensation as it refreshes your body. You prepare a breakfast that nourishes you, maybe warm oats with fruit, maybe scrambled eggs with greens, and you eat slowly, savoring each bite as an act of care. By the time you step out into the world, your mind is lighter, your mood steadier, and your perspective gentler. Nothing dramatic has changed, and yet everything feels different. This is the quiet miracle of gratitude and intentional nourishment. They do not demand huge resources. They do not require hours of time or specialized skills. They are accessible, repeatable, and deeply human practices, but their effects ripple outward. When you begin the day with appreciation and care, you are more patient with others, more focused in your work, more resilient in the face of stress. Emotional balance does not come from avoiding difficulty, but from having the inner resources to meet difficulty without being consumed by it. Gratitude and nourishment provide those resources. It is worth acknowledging that these practices may feel difficult at first, especially for someone in the depths of depression. Gratitude may feel hollow, nourishment may feel unimportant, but habits are not built in one day. The key is to start small. Gratitude can begin with noticing one single thing, perhaps just the breath. Nourishment can begin with adding one small piece of fruit or a single glass of water. Each small step is a seed planted, and with repetition, those seeds grow into a daily rhythm that supports life. And perhaps most beautifully, these habits remind us that healing does not have to be dramatic to be real. We do not always need a grand breakthrough to move toward balance. Sometimes healing is in the quiet thank you whispered in the morning. Sometimes it is in the bowl of oatmeal prepared with intention. These are not just actions, they are statements of worth, affirmations of life, and acts of quiet rebellion against despair. So as you think about your own mornings, I invite you to imagine what it would feel like to start with both gratitude and nourishment. Not as chores, but as gifts, not as obligations, but as opportunities. Each morning you have the chance to reset your perspective and stabilize your emotions. Gratitude gives you a lens of abundance, And nourishment gives you the energy to live through that lens. Together, they make mornings not just a beginning, but a healing. And day by day, they build a life rooted in balance, resilience, and gentle strength. When we think of change, we often imagine it as something large and dramatic, an event that alters the course of our lives overnight. But in truth, the most lasting changes are often the quietest ones. They do not arrive with noise and spectacle. They arrive in the form of small, consistent choices that add up, morning after morning, until they have reshaped the way we feel, the way we think, and the way we live. Mornings in particular hold a kind of magic in this regard. They are fresh beginnings, untouched hours when we can decide in small but meaningful ways how we want to move through the day ahead. Those early choices, stretching instead of scrolling, stepping outside instead of hiding under the covers, taking a breath before diving into work, are not trivial. They are, in fact, powerful acts of self-care. They function like natural antidepressants. Not because they erase challenges or instantly lift every shadow, but because they build resilience and calmness in steady, reliable doses. It is easy to underestimate the power of small choices. We often think that for something to make a difference in our mental health, it must be monumental. We tell ourselves we need a new job, a new city, or a new version of ourselves entirely. While those things can sometimes matter, what often matters more are the rituals we repeat daily. Habits shape identity. They send messages to the brain about what is possible and what is not. Each small act is like a brushstroke on the canvas of our mood. One stroke may not seem like much, but taken together, they create an entire picture. Imagine beginning your day by reaching for your phone and immediately diving into messages, emails, and social media. Within seconds, your nervous system is already on alert. Your mind is filled with comparisons, demands, and perhaps even dread. Now imagine instead beginning with a moment of choice. You take a deep breath, sit up slowly, and remind yourself that the day has not yet claimed you. You still have space to decide how to meet it. That single moment, small as it seems, changes the trajectory of your morning. Multiply that by weeks and months, and it becomes a foundation of calmness you can return to even in difficult times. Resilience is not built in sudden bursts. It is built through repetition. Just as muscles strengthen with repeated exercise, the mind strengthens with repeated habits of care. When you consistently choose to move your body in the morning, you teach your brain that energy is available, that you are capable of action even when you don't feel like it. When you consistently choose to step into sunlight, you train your biological rhythms to support your mood and rest cycles. When you consistently choose to breathe mindfully, you teach your nervous system that calm is accessible, that you are not helpless before anxiety or stress. Each choice becomes a message, not just for the moment, but for the long-term narrative of your life. You are not powerless. You have tools. You can care for yourself. The beauty of these choices is that they accumulate quietly. A single day of stretching or breathing may not feel transformative, but when practiced daily, these actions begin to rewire the brain. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change its structure through repeated activity, means that every small act of care literally shapes new pathways. If you begin the morning with negativity or chaos, those pathways strengthen. But if you begin with calm, gratitude, or nourishment, those pathways strengthen instead. Over time, it becomes easier to default to steadiness because your brain has learned that pattern. What feels like a tiny decision in the morning is, in fact, the training ground for your emotional resilience. Calmness, too, is not something that arrives as a gift out of nowhere. It is cultivated. Think of calm as a muscle that requires exercise. If we only attempt to find calm in moments of crisis, it often feels out of reach. But if we practice calmness each morning through small rituals, whether breathing deeply, moving slowly, or savoring a quiet meal, we are building familiarity with that state. Then, when challenges arise later in the day, we are more able to return to because we have rehearsed it. It is no longer foreign. It is a place we know. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. People often begin routines with great enthusiasm, attempting radical overhauls of their lives. But dramatic changes rarely last because they are unsustainable. What endures are the smaller, simpler actions done daily. Drinking a glass of water in the morning. Writing down one thing you are grateful for. Taking 5 minutes to stretch. These things may seem too small to matter, but they matter precisely because they are achievable, they are repeatable. And the repetition is where the healing happens. It is also worth noting that these choices are not just about mood in the moment, they are about identity. When you consistently choose habits of care in the morning, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer just someone surviving the day. You are someone shaping it. You are no longer simply at the mercy of your emotions. You are an active participant in your well-being. This shift in identity is subtle but powerful. Depression often steals the sense of agency. It convinces us that nothing we do will make a difference. Small, consistent choices prove that narrative wrong. They show us day after day that what we do matters even if the action is small. There is also a ritualistic quality to morning choices that provides comfort. Humans thrive on rhythm. Our ancestors lived by the cycles of light and dark, the patterns of the seasons. In modern life, we often lose that rhythm, staying up late under artificial lights, waking at irregular hours, rushing without pause. By establishing consistent morning habits, we restore some of that rhythm. Our bodies respond with steadier energy, our minds with greater clarity. Rituals give shape to our days, and that shape provides a sense of safety. Safety, in turn, supports calmness. Of course, none of this means that small choices will erase hardship. Life will still bring grief, stress, and difficulty. But what these habits do is prepare us to meet hardship without being entirely overwhelmed by it. They create resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to face storms without losing our roots. Think of a tree that has grown strong not because it avoided the wind, but because it developed flexibility and depth through repeated exposure. Small morning choices are the roots we grow. They may be invisible to others, but they hold us steady when life becomes turbulent. The cumulative power of these choices also extends beyond the self. When we begin the day with care, we naturally show up differently in our relationships. A calmer, more resilient version of ourselves has more patience with loved ones, more clarity in communication, and more capacity for kindness. Our small morning habits ripple outward, influencing the tone of our households, our workplaces, and even our communities. In this way, choosing care for ourselves is not selfish, it is generous. It allows us to contribute to the world from a place of steadiness rather than depletion. It is important, too, to allow flexibility. Consistency does not mean rigidity. Life will not always allow for perfect routines, and that is okay. The power lies not in doing everything every morning, but in maintaining the spirit of care. Some days you may walk outside for sunlight, other days you may simply open the blinds. Some days you may have time for a full breakfast, other days it may just be a handful of nuts and fruit. The point is not perfection, but persistence. As long as the choices are made with intention, they carry their healing effect. Over time, these small acts become more than habits. They become rituals of dignity. Each one says, I honor my life enough to care for it. Each one whispers, I am worth the effort. In the midst of depression, that message may feel unbelievable at first, but repeated daily, the body and mind begin to believe it. And when you believe you are worth caring for, resilience becomes not just possible, but natural. So when you wake tomorrow, remember that you do not need to conquer the whole day at once. You do not need to solve every problem or fix every wound. All you need is to make one small choice of care, then another, and then another. Stretch your body, drink water, step into the light. Take a breath, eat something that steadies you. These choices may feel small, but they are seeds of healing. And as seeds grow into trees, these choices grow into resilience, calmness, and strength. In the end, mental health is not about perfection or constant happiness. It is about building a foundation strong enough to hold us when life is heavy. Small, consistent morning choices are bricks in that foundation. They are natural antidepressants, available every day, requiring only our willingness to try. And with each morning we practice, we are not only starting the day, we are shaping the story of our lives into one of strength, care, and quiet hope.